Hello everyone, and welcome. We have a massive amount of new interesting details and leaks for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, its official title, new Amiibo functionality, for the upcoming September Nintendo Direct, as well as how it is getting its own Nintendo Direct coming later on, and some sort of special Nintendo Treehouse event planned, and other details. Some of this comes from interesting emails, people on Twitter well known in the industry, and other gaming news websites. I will try my best to have timestamps to help those of you who may be more interested in a specific section. If you enjoy videos like this and want to stay up to date on Nintendo or Zelda news, rumors, leaks, top 10s, Zelda theories, cancelled and unreleased games, or even our Zelda podcast, the Highland Gamescast, please subscribe and give this video a like. I would also love to hear your thoughts on when you realistically believe Nintendo will give more details on Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and your guess at what you believe the release date and official title will be. I would love to read through all of them and see what you have to say. When I read it, I'll be sure to give your comment a like and a heart or a reply. So, in the words of the great HMK, remember, it is important to hype responsibly, and don't believe absolutely everything until the rumor or leak is either confirmed or denied by Nintendo. However, Nintendo themselves are about as accurate as most leakers when they do give an announcement, debunking or confirming a rumor. I mean, how many times did they confirm the release date of Breath of the Wild, its sequel, and many other games, only to give another date months later? Also, how many times did Nintendo completely deny Skyward Sword HD was coming to the Switch, or would be almost impossible to bring to the Switch? And we have many other leaks that ended up actually being true that they denied as well. So sometimes you can't even rely on Nintendo to confirm or deny something and be honest. Anyways, that's always something that comes to mind when I see Nintendo commenting about a rumor. Let's begin with the Nintendo Direct and then move into Breath of the Wild 2. How do we even know we are getting a Nintendo Direct in September, let alone anything about Breath of the Wild sequel? We actually have a few different reasons on why it is very likely. Since Nintendo first began having Nintendo Directs, there are always 3 specific months that have had at least one Nintendo Direct, sometimes up to 3 different Directs, as well as other events, like Nintendo Treehouses and other specials. February, June, and September. There might be one year that has been skipped, but it is always reliable. You may be thinking people said the same thing about a Direct happening in June, usually during the week of E3, and the leakers were wrong about that. Well, technically, June 2022 did have a Direct, 2 in fact. June 22nd had a big Direct focused on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And yes, it is officially labeled as a Nintendo Direct by Nintendo. The second Direct was on June 28th, and it was to show off all of the third-party and indie games that Nintendo had originally planned to have as part of their usual E3 Direct before everyone's E3 plans were changed. We also have several other people confirming a Nintendo Direct for September, a lot of them with a great track record, such as Jeff Grubb, and some who have given the exact date a Nintendo Direct was announced, and the date it would be presented multiple times. So with that track record, I kind of have to believe it. While not necessarily an insider, one of our great friends, Stealth, had a great outline of this on Twitter, with each date and his thoughts. He says, "There has been a Nintendo Direct every September for the last 6 years. I'd say the odds are pretty good for the same this year. September 1st, 2016, September 13th, 2017, September 13th, 2018, September 4th, 2019, September 3rd, 2020. And September 17th, 2020. September 23rd, 2021. He also had a very similar post last September, and obviously it ended up being correct as well. Nintendo needs to share their early 2023 plans. The September Nintendo Direct is usually the last major one of the year, with a focus on winter, which would mean Q4 2022 and Q1 2023. Of course, there are no rules that say Nintendo must do a Direct in September, but it wouldn't be out of the ordinary. He doesn't include every September Direct, but 2020 also had a Monster Hunter Direct, making the total 3. 2019 also had a second Smash Bros. Direct. 2014 had 2, the 4th and 24th. 2013 had 3, the 4th, 8th, and 18th. 2012 had 3 on the 7th, 13th, and 28th. So Since Nintendo began making directs, every September has had at least one Nintendo Direct, sometimes up to 3. The only exception is the year 2015, which did not have any directs between June 16th and November 12th, most likely due to the then CEO and president of Nintendo, Iwata, passing away in July. Now, where do I begin with all of these Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 rumors and leaks? We have multiple Nintendo Directs that will feature the game coming up. So first, let's start with everything involving the sequel and the September Nintendo Direct we just covered. Then, move on to the other directs, or treehouse events. These are all collected and put together as neatly as I could so that we can get through this quick. This first Nintendo Direct is suggested to take place on Thursday, September 8th or the 15th, but I've also heard people mention September 12th. It will have a new gameplay and cinematic trailer will be shown, demonstrating new abilities, items, and locations from the original Breath of the Wild that have been updated or changed, ending with the official title followed by the release date. They will give a few new details on the game and end by teasing more information will be coming soon. They believe everything that will be shown was originally planned for the usual June E3 Direct, but Nintendo thought it would be better to wait until later in the year to showcase their Direct, at a time when the Direct wouldn't have to share the spotlight or coverage with everyone else's major announcements. A playable demo was also planned for E3. As for the second Direct, in January, Nintendo will release another trailer, give more updates, and show off new Amiibo. This may all be revealed during a Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 focused Nintendo Direct, such as the ones we just had for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Splatoon 3, and the Pokemon Directs, or it will all be released as individual trailers throughout January. A Nintendo Treehouse event with Nintendo showcasing gameplay in January or February. Okay, yeah, that is a lot. Before I give my thoughts on all of this, I ask you to please give yours in the comments below. I would love to read through all of them and see what you have to say. When I read it, I'll be sure to give your comment a like and a heart or a reply. I personally think this is really interesting. Although all of this doesn't come from the same person, with everything added together, it seems like a bit too much to believe. Will we have a Nintendo Direct in September? I would say yes. Nintendo has always had one, and they do need to promote all of those holiday games, sometimes multiple. Will it feature Breath of the Wild 2? Well, we have other credible leakers mentioning Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD, as I discussed in this video here. So it's hard to say, though we have seen Nintendo talk about multiple Zelda games in the same Nintendo Direct several times before. So it could be possible, especially with them being ports of games that already released on the Wii U, and not a first-time experience. If the Nintendo Direct doesn't have the HD ports as well as Breath of the Wild 2, I would expect it to have more Breath of the Wild 2 details before I would expect to hear anything about the HD Switch ports. I just think Breath of the Wild 2 is almost a guarantee where the ports are just heavily rumored and speculated. After all, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be not just one of the biggest games to release next year for Nintendo, but PlayStation and Xbox as well. Is the September Direct going to be showing off Zelda and other games that were originally planned for E3? Interviews with Aonuma and Miyamoto mention how they have been at different events and plan to reveal a new trailer or gameplay footage, or give details, not just about Zelda games, but others as well. And at the last minute, decide the time just didn't feel right, so they decided to save it to be revealed during another event. They were originally going to show off Breath of the Wild, or Zelda Wii U as it was known at the time, an entire year early in 2013's E3, and they had the game ready to show off during the New York Comic-Con in 2015 or 16, and decided not to, literally hours before they had planned to. Since they have done this exact same thing several times before, and admitted to it, I give this a yes. Will Nintendo have a month of Zelda for January or February, with one of the months being filled with a bunch of new Zelda and Breath of the Wild 2 reveals? Most people are expecting Breath of the Wild 2 to be released sometime around March, though I have a fear it'll be closer to the summer. So if it is March, it would match with the original's release, and Nintendo usually does go all out the month or two before a new big game is released, You can easily expect 3 or more trailers to be released within a month of a game's release. I have no doubt the sequel will also feature Amiibo, so they will have to have trailers dedicated to that announcement as well. The Treehouse event. I'm going to say maybe, but I would expect at least a video with 𝗏𝗏𝗏 or Fujibayashi showing off gameplay with someone translating what they're saying, or something along the lines of what they did at E3 and the Game Awards with the original Breath of the Wild. I wouldn't necessarily think it would be a full Treehouse demo like we just seen, though for the original Breath of the Wild, they did have one that lasted what seemed like 8 hours after E3 2016, if I remember correctly. Interestingly, with the Game Awards in December, I couldn't find anything mentioning Breath of the Wild 2 being there, unlike last year. I also don't see any rumors or speculation on possible DLC, though I do think DLC would be very likely, and I think they would release even more than they did with the first game. Again, what are your thoughts on all of this? When do you honestly expect Nintendo to finally have a big focus on Breath of the Wild 2? What kind of amiibo do you expect? Really quick, if you are tired of rumors and leaks that have yet to be confirmed or debunked, you can check out this video on everything we know about Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, which uses only official interviews, announcements, and details coming directly from Nintendo, which actually covers a lot more about the game than you would think. If you would like to know more info on the making of the original Breath of the Wild, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, or other games and anime, we have dozens of videos in this playlist where we have a few of our friends who worked on the games, who worked on the Zelda games, as guests on our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you for watching the video all the way through. Some of you have been asking, and yes, we still have shirts and other merch available at teespring.com. You can find a link in the description below. If you purchase one and send us a picture wearing it, we will give you a shout out and include your picture during one of our upcoming videos. Thank you to our amazing Patreon supporters, starting off with our royal family, Shadow to Us. On our champion tier, Justin Clark, Monica Spath, Sober X, in the Sheikah tier, Andramoy, Joseph, Natsu, Wrecker1, Rusty Caulfield, Tremel, and in the Kokiri tier, Chad Costin, David Guthman, Candy, Disappointment, Gus Calvo, Zane, Lean, Lovable Christie, Mr. Monocled Metroid, and whoever this is only donated to hear Jesse speak my name. Thank you all so much. If any of you would like your name to be featured at the end of any of our videos, or to get a shout out at the beginning of our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast, and to have any of your topics or questions answered or turned into a full video to be featured here on our channel, along with many other things, please join our Patreon and help support the channel. Thank you all so much. Happy Halloween.